It's a really fascinating paradox when you stop and actually look at it.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're sitting in this grand concert hall.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right. And you are watching this world-class symphony orchestra.
Yeah.
But the person standing up there on the conductor's podium, in the spotlight,
Right.
they aren't actually conducting.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they aren't keeping time. They aren't cueing the different sections. Instead, they have a violin tucked under their chin, and they are furiously playing first violin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they are completely ignoring the brass section. The woodwinds are like just guessing at the tempo, and the percussion is coming in at all the wrong times.
That sounds like an absolute disaster.
Right. It sounds awful. You would walk out.
I mean, I would ask for a refund, yeah.
Exactly. But here is the wild part. In the legal world, in major law firms and corporate departments across the globe, you see this exact dynamic play out every single day.
You really do. It's everywhere.
You have some of the most brilliant, technically excellent, you know, commercially astute minds on the planet. People who are absolutely fearless in a high-stakes negotiation.
Oh, the best of the best.
Right. And yet they are presiding over some of the most burned out, chaotic, and just underperforming teams you will ever encounter.
Yeah.
It begs a very serious and honestly a very uncomfortable question. Why do the best lawyers often make the most disastrous team leaders?
It is a profound disconnect.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's incredibly common.
Yeah.
What we tend to do in the legal profession, and honestly in a lot of highly technical fields.
Oh, for sure. Engineering, medicine, all of it.
Exactly. We conflate two very different types of excellence.
Yeah.
We look at someone who can, dismantle a complex 500-page corporate merger contract overnight.
Right. A total genius.
Or someone who can walk into a high-stakes arbitration and just completely outmaneuver the opposition. And we automatically assume that same person intrinsically knows how to build, motivate, and guide a team of 20 diverse individuals.
Which is a huge leap.
It's a massive leap. We assume technical brilliance just magically translates to operational leadership.
Yeah.
But those are completely distinct disciplines. They require totally different mental muscles.
That is exactly the illusion we are here to shatter today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Our mission for this session is to explore that crucial and, frankly, frequently ignored distinction between being a great lawyer and being a high-performing legal project leader.
It's such an important topic.
It really is, and we are going to be working through some incredibly insightful material today. It's a specialized briefing that has been circulating, aimed specifically at law firms and corporate in-house legal departments across Africa.
Yes, and it's fantastic.
It really cracks the code on legal project management, which we'll just refer to as LPM for short.
Right.
It looks at how you take all that raw, formidable legal brilliance and actually channel it into sustainable, profitable delivery. And, without breaking the people who are doing the actual work.
Which is vital, because what we're fundamentally examining here is a systemic failure within the industry.
Wow, systemic failure. That's a strong phrase.
But it's true. It is the failure of equating mere seniority and billable hours with leadership capability.
Yeah.
Law firms operate in this incredibly high-stakes, high-pressure environment where peak performance is just demanded constantly.
Every single day.
Exactly. Yet they rarely, if ever, provide the proper structural frameworks to transition their top-tier individual contributors into effective project leaders.
They just kind of throw them to wolves.
That's pretty much. And what the frameworks in this material offer is a methodology to transform what is often unpredictable, highly stressful chaos into structured, sustainable, and highly profitable delivery.
Okay, let's unpack this, because
Yeah.
the briefing points out something that feels almost painfully obvious once you actually stop to think about it.
What's that?
Law schools do not teach project leadership.
Nope, not at all.
Think about the journey of a lawyer, right? You spend years in law school learning how to apply the law under intense pressure.
You're learning precedent, case law, all of that.
Exactly. You learn how to argue, how to find the loophole, how to draft airtight clauses, but you do not take a single class on how to manage a team's workflow.
Not one.
You aren't taught how to handle a junior associate who is overwhelmed or, how to properly forecast the budget for a multi-phase litigation.
It's wild when you think about it.
It is, and yet the partners at the top of these firms rarely ever examine this glaring skill gap until Well, until a major multi-million-dollar transaction completely goes off the rails.
That is the core of the issue right there. We have to completely dismantle this grand illusion.
The illusion that the smartest person should be the boss.
Yes, this fundamental unspoken assumption that almost every traditional law firm makes, that the smartest, most legally adept person in the room should naturally be the one in charge of the team.
Right.
The literature we are examining explicitly separates these concepts. Legal expertise, knowing the law, identifying risk, negotiating the terms.
The actual lawyer stuff.
Right, the lawyer stuff. That utilizes a completely different cognitive skill set than legal project leadership.
Makes sense.
Leadership in this context is about getting a diverse group of people, often with varying levels of experience and different communication styles, to deliver high-quality legal work consistently.
And predictably.
Predictably, and crucially, without burning out. But across the legal sector in Africa, and honestly on a global scale, this distinction is entirely blurred.
It's blurred to the point of being invisible. I mean, the material gives such clear, everyday examples of this phenomenon.
Oh, the examples are so spot on.
Like the best litigator in the firm, the one who wins the impossible cases, they automatically get promoted to become the head of a litigation practice.
Every time.
Or the top transactional lawyer, the rainmaker who is closing all the massive cross-border deals, they are simply handed the reins to lead the biggest deal team in the firm.
And no one questions it.
No. No one in management questions it because their technical excellence is undeniable. The logic is just, well, they are making us the most money, so obviously they should be in charge.
And that logic is exactly why firms repeatedly make this error. Technical excellence is highly visible.
It's flashy.
It's loud. It wins cases. It secures massive clients. And historically, it is the sole metric that the traditional partnership model rewards above all else.
Right.
Project management, on the other hand, is largely invisible. Good project management is quiet.
That's a great way to put it. It looks like nothing is happening.
Exactly. It looks like a lack of emergencies. It only becomes visible when it is missing.
And when it's missing, it is a disaster.
Total disaster. And when it is missing, you see the cascading symptoms that are so thoroughly outlined in our sources.
Let's talk about those symptoms.
You start seeing missed deadlines. You see incredibly inconsistent work quality coming from junior staff, which then requires massive rewrites from the seniors.
Staying up until 3 a.m.
Yes. You see massive associate turnover and burnout.
Yeah.
And then, predictably, you have these bewildered senior partners who look around and angrily blame their quote-unquote underperforming or lazy team.
Oh, wow.
They are completely blind to the fact that the failure stems directly from their own lack of leadership structure.
So, to use an analogy, it's like taking your star quarterback. The guy who has the incredible arm, who throws the perfect spiral under immense pressure while 3 massive linebackers are trying to tackle him.
A generational talent.
Exactly. He's a generational talent.
Yeah.
And because he is so good at throwing the ball, you suddenly make him the head coach of the entire franchise.
Oh, no.
But you give him 0 training.
Yeah.
You just hand him a clipboard on a Sunday morning and say, all right, manage the entire 50-man roster, design the defensive strategy, coordinate the training schedule, handle the salary cap, and by the way, deal with the media.
It's absurd. You would never do that in sport.
Right, but wait, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
Lawyers are notoriously intelligent, highly driven people. If they are so smart and they have such incredible analytical skills, why can't these brilliant minds just figure out management on the fly? Like, why is this such an insurmountable hurdle for them?
That is the exact trap, and it's a brilliant question. What's fascinating here is that trying to execute management on the fly is the precise mechanism that causes the burnout we're talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Intelligence, no matter how profound, does not automatically download a framework for operational leadership into someone's brain.
It's not like the Matrix. I know Kung Fu.
Exactly. It's not a software update. These brilliant lawyers have never been explicitly equipped to define a cohesive long-term vision for a complex project.
Right.
They have never been taught how to allocate resources strategically across a shifting timeline. They don't know the mechanics of managing workload distribution.
So you end up with one person drowning.
Yes. So that one associate isn't drowning at 2 a.m. while another is sitting idle playing solitaire. And they certainly haven't been taught how to intentionally build a team culture that can sustain high performance over a grueling 6-month transaction without people quitting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
When you rely on your raw intelligence to figure all that out dynamically, in the moment, while you are also trying to do the complex, high-stakes legal work yourself.
Taking a break.
The system inevitably collapses under its own weight. You simply run out of cognitive bandwidth.
Which brings us to how they cope with that collapse. Because if they are trying to manage on the fly and failing, and they are feeling that loss of control, they inevitably default to the only method they actually trust.
Doing it all themselves.
Exactly, doing absolutely everything themselves. They pull all the work back inward. And this leads us to one of the most pervasive, deeply ingrained, and frankly dangerous structural traps in the entire legal sector.
Yes. The operational literature defines this as the hero model.
The hero model.
It is a phenomenon you will recognize immediately if you have ever worked in or near a law firm. It's when a single senior lawyer carries the entire weight, the entire momentum of a matter on their own shoulders.
Just carrying the whole team.
They rely purely on their own personal expertise, their unique professional network, their deep client relationships, and their individual subjective judgment.
Right.
In this model, the law firm depends entirely on them to generate revenue. The clients adore them because they are always available. And the junior team...
What does the junior team even do?
Well, the junior team doesn't really practice law. They exist merely to support this hero. They carry the bags.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. We have been culturally conditioned to absolutely revere the hero lawyer.
Oh, completely.
Think about pop culture. Think about every legal drama on television. We idolize the rogue, brilliant legal mind who swoops in at the 11th hour, finds the hidden loophole in the contract, barely sleeps, drinks 5 cups of coffee, and single-handedly wins the day in a dramatic courtroom speech.
It makes for incredible television.
It's gripping. But structurally, what we are learning today is that this pop culture hero is actually a massive liability to their own firm.
They are a staggering liability. To borrow a brilliant phrase from the analysis, the hero model is essentially a capacity bottleneck dressed up as expertise.
Ooh, a capacity bottleneck dressed up as expertise. That's good.
It's so accurate. Let's break down the severe real-world consequences of this. I'll give you an analogy.
Okay.
Imagine a powerful computer where all the processing, graphics, memory, and network handling are forced through a single central CPU.
Right, rather than having dedicated graphics cards.
Exactly. Rather than distributing the load to dedicated memory banks, the moment the processing demands spike, what happens?
The entire computer freezes.
Exactly. That is the hero lawyer. First, the legal matter literally stalls if that senior lawyer takes leave, attends a conference, or gets sick.
Because nothing gets approved.
Not a single document goes to the client without their personal sign-off, so the whole firm's output drops to 0 when they are unavailable.
Wow.
Second, the junior lawyers trapped in this system never develop any real substantive legal skills.
Because they aren't actually doing anything meaningful.
Right. Because the hero doesn't trust anyone else's judgment, the juniors aren't given real responsibility. They are reduced to fetching documents, doing basic proofreading, or managing administrative tasks for the hero.
Right, so you have these brilliant young lawyers who went to top schools, got massive student loans, and they are essentially functioning as highly paid administrative assistants.
It's a huge waste of talent.
And the third consequence.
The third consequence is perhaps the most dangerous for the firm's bottom line. In the hero model, the client relationships remain entirely personal to that specific hero.
Oh, I see where this is going.
The client doesn't trust the firm. The client trusts John or Sarah. The relationship never becomes institutionalized.
So if the hero gets a better offer from a rival firm and leaves,
Yep.
or if they decide to retire, or if they just completely burn out and walk away from the profession, the firm is left holding an empty bag. The client immediately leaves with the hero, the revenue vanishes, and the juniors who are left behind don't actually know how to run the complex matters because they've never been allowed to do it.
It creates a massive vacuum, and a crisis ensues. And, I want to be clear for everyone listening, this isn't just a traditional law firm problem.
It happens elsewhere.
Oh, yeah, this exact same pattern replicates itself in corporate in-house legal departments, too.
Interesting.
Imagine a multinational corporation. You will frequently find a general counsel or a head of legal who insists on personally handling or at least intimately reviewing every single high-stakes matter.
Why do they do that? Just ego.
Either because they suffer from the illusion that they are the only capable person in the building, or because the department lacks documented, trustworthy processes.
And what happens?
Massive, paralyzing backlogs form. The business units can't get their contracts approved. Response times completely collapse the moment that head of legal is seconded to a big acquisition or simply tries to take a 2-week vacation with their family.
They literally can't take a vacation.
The hero model creates immense operational fragility in any organization.
So the million-dollar question, how do we fix it?
The big question.
How does legal project management actually solve the bottleneck in a CAPE? Because if I am that hero lawyer and I am terrified of dropping the ball because my name is on the door, how do you convince me to deconstruct my own hero status?
You do it by systematically externalizing what is locked inside the hero's head.
Externalizing it.
Now, that is the core function of LPM. It uses clear, structured project plans, explicitly defined task ownership, rigid scope boundaries, and thoroughly documented processes.
So getting it all out on paper.
Exactly. The vast institutional knowledge, the strategic instincts, the step-by-step methodology that would normally be locked away in that one senior person's brain, it is forcibly distributed across the entire team and captured in a shared matter record.
But doesn't the hero feel like they're being replaced?
Now, this is crucial. The senior lawyer does not become irrelevant. We are not trying to replace them.
Right.
They remain the vital subject matter expert and the primary relationship holder with the client. But the critical shift is that the firm's baseline output, the day-to-day running, drafting, and monitoring of the matter.
The actual engine of the work.
Yes, the engine. It no longer depends entirely on that senior lawyer's hourly availability and their personal energy reserves. The machine can run even if the hero is asleep.
It is the transition from relying on individual heroics to building an actual operational system.
Perfectly said.
And to successfully dismantle that hero model, the methodology we are studying argues that the senior lawyer has to step up, abandon the ego, and adopt 3 non-negotiable core responsibilities of a legal project leader.
The big 3.
Let's really dig into the first one. Responsibility number 1 is replacing their own internal intuition with an external roadmap. It is about providing vision and direction.
This is the foundational bedrock of LPM. Every legal matter obviously has a stated technical objective.
Right.
The client comes to you and says, we need to acquire this competitor, or we need to win this arbitration, or we need to register this intellectual property. That is the objective.
The end goal.
But a diverse team of lawyers, paralegals, and support staff working on a complex matter needs much more than just a stated objective. They cannot operate on a slogan.
Right. Win the case isn't exactly a strategy.
Exactly. They need a roadmap. They need to know exactly who is doing what, in what specific sequence, by what hard deadline, and perhaps most importantly, they need to deeply understand why their specific isolated step matters to the broader context of the whole project.
I want to pause on that why for a second. If you are listening to this right now, think about the last major project you were assigned to, whether it was legal or not.
Oh, this applies to everything.
Did you actually know how your specific piece fit into the grand puzzle, or were you just handed a bucket of bricks and told to start stacking them?
Usually it's the bucket of bricks.
Right, because if you don't provide that context, you are just inviting chaos. The briefing notes that without this clear vision, confusion becomes the default state of the team.
100%.
Think about it practically. You have junior associates spending 15 billable hours intensely researching and writing a memo that answers entirely the wrong legal question.
Happens all the time.
Because they didn't understand the ultimate commercial goal of the client. You have team members duplicating each other's efforts, like 2 people drafting the exact same clause because no one bothered to define clear ownership of the task.
It's maddening.
And then at the end of the week, the partners throw their hands up in frustration when they receive completely misguided first drafts. They get angry at the junior, but they don't realize that the person who wrote the draft had no earthly idea where the overall matter was actually heading.
And that profound frustration is entirely preventable. It is an unforced error.
Totally unforced.
The methodology emphasizes that providing this vision is not about hosting a single massive 3-hour briefing section in a conference room at the start of a matter, handing it a thick binder, and then never speaking of it again.
Right, a binder that just sits on a shelf.
Exactly. Vision is not a one-off event. It requires the creation of what is called a shared matter plan.
Shared matter plan.
Yes. This must be a living, breathing, easily accessible document that explicitly maps out the scope of the work, the timeline, the specific deliverables, and the individual accountability.
It's constantly updated.
And the leader, the legal project manager, has to actively refresh and realign this direction with the team at each significant phase of the matter.
I keep thinking about this like building a massive state-of-the-art skyscraper.
I love this analogy.
Imagine being the lead architect, right?
Mm.
And you hand the electricians and the plumbers their own individual, highly specific blueprints for just the third floor. But you outright refuse to show them what the final building is supposed to look like. You don't tell them if they are wiring a residential apartment building, a high-tech commercial office space, or a hospital.
They're flying blind.
How can they possibly make the right micro decisions? They don't know the load requirements. No wonder the pipes don't line up and the circuits blow when they try to connect their work.
It's guaranteed to fail.
You simply cannot expect smart people to make smart micro decisions if you actively deprive them of the macro vision.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and if we connect this to the bigger picture of legal practice, that skyscraper analogy hits perfectly on the concept of judgment.
Judgment, right.
A lawyer's ultimate value is their judgment. When junior members of a legal team actually understand the macro vision, when they know how their specific, seemingly isolated task impacts the ultimate commercial goal of the transaction, their daily micro-level judgment improves instantly.
They aren't just robots.
Right. They aren't just robots following a prompt. They can spot hidden risks in a document that weren't explicitly mentioned in their brief. They know what obscure details are critical to the client and what can be safely summarized.
Which saves time.
Massive amounts of time. And ultimately, this is where the financial return on investment happens. This drastic improvement in junior judgment drastically reduces the review burden on the senior partner.
Oh, I see.
The senior partner spends significantly less time tearing apart and rewriting junior drafts at midnight, because the junior actually understood the assignment in its full context the first time.
Which in turn frees up the senior partner to do the high-level, complex, strategic work they are actually billing the big bucks for.
Exactly. It is a virtuous cycle.
So, okay, you have established the vision. The blueprint is crystal clear. Everyone knows we are building a hospital, not an apartment block.
Right.
Now you have to figure out exactly who is going to build this skyscraper. And this brings us to the second core responsibility of a legal project leader: the mechanics of resource allocation. Now, the source material makes a massive, sweeping claim here. It states that resourcing is often the singular difference between a highly profitable legal engagement and a total financial write-off. Is it really that dramatic?
It is a bold claim, but the data absolutely backs it up.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Resourcing is where legal project leadership produces the most immediate, tangible, measurable financial impact on a firm. It is the lever that controls profitability.
Okay, break that down for us.
The text breaks effective resource allocation down into three vital, distinct elements. First, you have to match the right people to the right tasks.
Seems basic.
It sounds simple, but it is rarely practiced.
Yeah.
Not every single task on a complex, multi-million-dollar transaction requires a senior associate with an exorbitant billing rate.
True.
Things like routine document review, compiling first draft research memos, or general matter administration are absolutely critical to the success of the project, but they do not require a partner's touch.
Right, because if you mismatch people to tasks, the financial and psychological impacts are absolutely brutal. The literature points out that you end up doing three things. First, you waste the firm's internal money. Second, you inflate the client's final fee unnecessarily.
Which leads to very angry phone calls.
Oh, yeah, which leads to difficult conversations and slashed bills. And third, you severely demotivate your staff.
Definitely.
You either have a junior associate who has been handed a highly complex strategic task they aren't ready for, and they're wildly overstretched and just panicking in silence.
Afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Or you have a highly paid senior associate who is understretched, bored, and resentful because they're spending their day doing basic administrative filing. Both scenarios destroy morale and margin.
Exactly. You're misapplying your most expensive assets.
Right.
The second critical element of resourcing is knowing exactly when to bring in a specialist over a generalist.
Okay.
The material uses very specific examples here, like recognizing when a deal requires specialized regulatory input, complex tax structuring, or niche sector-specific expertise, rather than just having the corporate team try to handle it all.
Okay, I have to jump in here and play the role of this stressed-out partner again.
Put the hat on.
If I am leading a deal, right, and I know we need some tax structuring advice on Clause 4, my immediate thought is going to be, look, it is going to take me entirely too long to formally draft a brief for the tax department, get a tax specialist up to speed on the background of the deal, and then review their work to make sure it fits. I don't have the time. I'll just research it and figure it out myself this weekend to save the client time and money.
Yep.
I know for a fact that happens every day. How does our source counter that very powerful, very common instinct?
The source material is ruthless about this point. That instinct is almost always wrong.
Wow. Ruthless.
It is a false economy. The methodology explicitly states that the cost of delay and the inevitable agonizing rework that comes from underqualified drafting consistently and vastly exceeds the minor, upfront time investment of a brief, targeted specialist engagement.
So you're actually saving time by asking for help.
Yes. Let me explain the mechanics of this. When a generalist tries to play specialist, they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
They miss subtle legislative nuances. They inadvertently introduce massive compliance risks into the transaction. And eventually, usually right before closing when the stakes are absolute highest, the error is discovered.
And the wheels fall off?
The entire deal stalls, the client panics, and the firm pays a massive price because the work has to be completely redone properly by the specialist anyway, but now under emergency conditions.
Which is way more expensive.
The ROI on taking 30 minutes to brief a specialist is astronomical compared to the risk of doing it yourself.
That makes perfect logical sense when you spell it out. Don't play the hero. So what is the third element of resourcing?
The third element is proactively managing workload across the team to prevent the dangerous concentration of effort. This ties directly back to the hero model we discussed earlier. When one top-performing lawyer carries the vast majority of the work on a matter, maybe because they're the most experienced, or perhaps they have a psychological block against delegating.
Which happens a lot.
Or maybe leadership simply failed to map and allocate the tasks properly. That specific matter becomes incredibly fragile.
Very fragile.
That one lawyer's physical and mental availability becomes a critical path for the entire project. If they slow down, everything stops.
Right.
And here is the hidden psychological and operational danger that firms ignore. When a lawyer is carrying that much sustained load, they become exhausted.
Oh, completely.
Their cognitive function declines, and their vital, high-stakes judgment calls are eventually being made in deeply depleted states.
That is a genuinely terrifying thought, especially when you are dealing with high-stakes legal outcomes that could make or break a client's business. You do not want the crucial risk assessment on a billion-dollar merger being made by someone who has been running on pure adrenaline, caffeine, and 4 hours of sleep for a month straight, simply because they lacked the structural framework to distribute the workload.
Precisely. You are compromising the very product the client is paying for. Sharp legal judgment.
Yeah.
And when that exhausted lawyer finally does hit a physical or mental wall and is forced to pass the work on to someone else, all the vital context of the deal is still locked inside their exhausted head.
Because they never made a shared matter plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rather than being documented. So the new person coming in has no idea what is going on. It is a complete recipe for disaster.
Okay, so let's summarize where we are. You have established the macro vision. You have meticulously allocated your resources. The right people are doing the right tasks. The necessary specialists have been briefed. And the workload is balanced across the team so no one is drowning.
Structurally perfect.
Right. Structurally, you are perfect.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a second. Legal work is still fundamentally grueling.
It is.
The hours are long, the clients are highly demanding, and the stakes are sky high. How do you stop your perfectly structured, well-resourced team from just emotionally and psychologically falling apart under the sheer, unyielding pressure of the environment?
That is the perfect pivot, and it brings us to the third core responsibility of a legal project leader: building and sustaining team culture.
Culture.
And literature makes a very crucial, almost confrontational distinction here. It argues that leaders who treat team culture as a luxury, as something fluffy, that they will get around to thinking about after the matter is closed and the fees are collected.
Those leaders are in trouble.
Those are the exact leaders who continuously lose their best, most talented people.
Wow.
If you wait until the transaction successfully closes to finally think about how your team is doing emotionally and operationally, it is already way too late. The damage is done. Those who remain on your team will absolutely not be performing at their full capacity on the next deal.
And the text is very quick to clarify what it actually means by culture in this context. Because, I mean, let's be honest, the word culture has been completely hijacked by corporate jargon.
Oh, totally.
The text specifically says this does not mean sending the team on awkward HR trust fall retreats,
No trust falls.
or setting up formal abstract well-being programs, or putting a ping pong table in the break room.
No ping pong tables.
It is talking about culture at the matter level, in the trenches, in the day-to-day execution of the work.
Exactly right. It redefines matter-level culture as 3 distinct operational practices.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, it is about recognizing effort, not just celebrating outcomes.
Recognizing effort.
Let's look at the mechanics of that. If a junior associate stays up until 2 a.m. to untangle an incredibly complex, messy draft document, and they do a great job, you acknowledge that contribution immediately the next morning.
That makes sense.
You do not wait for the deal to close 3 months later to say good job. Immediate recognition sustains motivation during the long slog.
Right, it gives them fuel to keep going.
Second, culture means actively creating the psychological conditions for people to raise problems before they become full-blown crises.
Ooh, that's important.
If an associate discovers a fatal flaw in the diligence process, they need to know they won't be executed for bringing the bad news to the partner.
Shooting a messenger.
Exactly. You can't shoot the messenger.
And the third practice.
The third is establishing an environment where junior members feel completely psychologically safe to ask clarifying questions rather than just guessing at what the partner actually wants.
I want to really highlight that last point because the text makes a powerful argument that these are not soft skills.
Not at all.
In the legal profession, we have this toxic habit of dismissing culture and communication as the fluffy stuff that HR deals with.
Yeah.
But the source material insists these are hard operational levers.
They absolutely are.
Think about it. Acknowledging a junior's contribution or taking the time to conduct a calm post-mortem on a failed task without screaming at them aren't just nice, empathetic things to do. They are the literal mechanical mechanisms that keep the human engine running smoothly across a 6-month transaction.
They are operational levers, and we can prove it with the math of project management.
The math.
Yes. Small, consistent actions compound over time. Think back to our resourcing discussion. We talked about the massive financial cost of delay and rework when a junior drafts something incorrectly because they didn't understand the vision.
Right.
Now, if you create a culture where guessing is actively discouraged and asking clarifying questions is rewarded rather than mocked, you directly prevent that costly rework from ever happening.
Oh, wow.
The junior asks a 5-minute question on Tuesday, which saves the partner from spending 5 hours rewriting the document on Friday.
That's huge.
It is a financial and operational imperative, not just a feel-good, kumbaya exercise.
It is brilliant when you frame it as risk mitigation. So we have these 3 core responsibilities for the leader: establishing vision, executing strategic resourcing, and building matter-level culture.
Yep.
That all sounds great, but how does a leader actually implement this in the real world before a matter kicks off? How do we move from theory to practice?
You need a framework.
Exactly. The briefing doesn't just leave us hanging with abstract ideas. It provides a highly practical 4-question framework for resourcing. This is the mechanical how-to. Let's walk through these 4 questions that a legal project leader must critically ask before they ever assemble their team.
Okay, the first question you must ask, and you must do this before you look at anyone's schedule, is what does this matter actually require?
What does the matter require?
The core mechanism here is to comprehensively map the tasks before you ever start naming names.
Give us an example.
Let's look at a hypothetical case study. Say you have a massive, complex litigation matter coming in. You don't just say, we need litigators. You map it. You realize this specific matter is going to need heavy, deep dive historical research capacity. It needs experienced trial litigators for the courtroom. And it perhaps needs a specialist counsel who understands environmental regulations.
Right.
Conversely, a contract-heavy corporate merger requires commercial drafters, a massive amount of diligent review capacity, and antitrust regulatory expertise.
Totally different skill sets.
The text warrants that if you don't define the task map first, you will inevitably fall into the fatal trap of resourcing a matter based purely on who happens to be walking down the hallway at that moment.
Or who just finished their last assignment.
Or who happens to have low billable hours this week, rather than who possesses the actual skills required to do the job right.
Okay, I have to push back on that because I can hear the reality of law firm life screaming in my ear right now.
Let's hear it.
If I'm a partner, the client hired me. They hired my firm. I don't get to just pick and choose from a magical, infinite pool of specialized lawyers.
Right.
I have my team of 5 associates. That's who I have. Isn't mapping tasks a luxury for massive firms?
That is the exact constraint that makes mapping tasks so incredibly critical, regardless of firm size.
Really?
Yes, you don't have an infinite pool. You only have those 5 people. If you don't formally map the tasks and understand the true requirements of the matter, you will inevitably assign the most critical, complex piece of legal analysis to the associate who simply replied to your email first,
Oh, wow.
or the one sitting closest to your office, rather than the person whose skill set actually matches the requirement. It is about optimizing scarcity.
Optimizing scarcity.
When you know exactly what the work is, you can deploy your limited team with surgical precision.
That makes total sense. You have to build the job description before you hire the applicant, even if the applicant is already on your payroll. Okay, what is question 2 in the framework?
Question 2 is, where should experience be concentrated and where can it be distributed?
Concentrated versus distributed.
We touched on this earlier, but this is about leverage. Every single legal matter has high judgment, high leverage tasks. These are the strategic calls, the nuanced risk assessments, the heavy face-to-face client negotiations.
The partner stuff.
Exactly. Those must absolutely be concentrated with the senior, highly experienced lawyers. But there are always lower judgment tasks that require rigorous attention to detail, time, and stamina rather than deep, specialized expertise.
Like what?
Think of large-scale document discovery or formatting annexures. Junior and mid-level lawyers should be given real, genuine ownership of those tasks with appropriate oversight protocols in place, of course.
And the briefing specifically notes that distributing this work isn't about cutting corners to save a buck or, delivering a substandard product to the client. It is a deliberate strategy.
A very deliberate one.
It is about actively building the capability and confidence of your juniors through real ownership, while simultaneously ensuring you are deploying your most expensive, finite resources, the senior partners, only where they create the absolute maximum value.
Yeah.
You don't use a scalpel to chop wood.
Exactly. You don't use a scalpel to chop wood, which leads directly to the third question, and this is where most firms bleed money.
Okay, lay it on us.
What is the resourcing plan for the different phases of the matter?
Phasing.
This is a massive, persistent blind spot for many traditional firms. Legal matters are rarely, if ever, linear. They do not require the exact same amount of work or the exact same team composition every single week for 6 months.
Oh, that makes sense.
A major transaction might demand intensely concentrated, all-hands-on-deck effort during the initial due diligence phase. Then, it might ease off significantly for a month while the core documentation is being drafted and reviewed by the other side.
And then?
And then, it will predictably peak again in an absolute frenzy right at the closing deadline.
It's just like a major movie production schedule.
How so?
Think about how a film is made. You do not pay your most expensive, highly specialized stunt double to just sit around on set in full gear, drinking coffee, while the actors are filming quiet, romantic dialogue scenes for 3 weeks.
No, you definitely don't.
You bring the stunt double in exactly when the script demands the action sequence. They do their highly specialized job, and then they leave. Law firms need to view their human resources the exact same way.
That is a perfect parallel. And this raises an incredibly important question about financial viability. How often do law firms fail to hit their profit margins on a matter simply because they operate on the lazy assumption that a team must remain completely static?
Wow, probably all the time.
They assign 5 people to a deal on day 1, and those exact same 5 people stay billed to the matter until the final closing 6 months later, regardless of what the workflow is actually doing.
Which is just throwing money away.
Exactly. By dynamically matching resources to the specific phases of the project, people can come on and off the matter as the demands dictate. It prevents burning people out during the peak moments because you can surge your capacity, and crucially, it prevents them from sitting around being underutilized and hurting their realization rates during the quieter phases.
It is so incredibly logical. It is just basic capacity management. Yet, it requires a level of deliberate, forward-looking planning that most of our hero lawyers just don't feel they have the time to do because they are too busy doing the actual legal work.
Which is the trap.
Which brings us to the final question in the framework, the safety net. Question 4.
Question 4 is all about risk mitigation. What is the contingency plan if a key team member is unexpectedly unavailable?
Because life happens.
Life happens. Foreseeable disruption should not completely derail a multi-million-dollar project. Leaders who plan for this up front do a few very specific mechanical things. First, they ensure the context and history of the matter is thoroughly documented in that shared matter plan we discussed, not just held in someone's memory.
Right.
Second, they actively cross-train at least one other team member on critical functions. So if the lead associate is handling all the regulatory filings, a mid-level associate is at least CC'd on a strategy and knows where the portal passwords are.
That seems so basic, but so important.
And third, they make the shared matter plan easily accessible to everyone on the team at all times. That way, if someone gets sick or abruptly leaves the firm, the matter doesn't collapse into chaos. The team just consults the roadmap and keeps driving.
Okay. All of this sounds absolutely incredible in theory. It sounds like the promised land of legal work, a place where lawyers sleep, clients are happy, and the firm makes a massive profit.
It really does.
But as we established right at the very beginning of this deep dive, law schools do not teach this. Partners don't naturally know how to do this. The apprenticeship model of law doesn't pass these skills down. So where does a legal professional actually go to learn these frameworks and make this a reality?
That's the key.
We aren't just going to leave you with the problem. The material we are analyzing today points toward a very specific, actionable solution.
It does. The literature points directly to a specialized training program, the Applied LPM course.
The Applied LPM course.
And what is critical to understand is that this course isn't just a random collection of management tips. It is built rigidly around the globally recognized four-step framework of the International Institute of Legal Project Management, or the ILPM.
No, I want to be clear. We are examining this course as a piece of data, not just giving a pitch.
Right, of course.
What fascinates me about this specific methodology is the practical grounding of it. The source highlights that this applied LPM course is facilitated by Nicolene Showman Liu. Now, she is an award-winning attorney who has actually built, scaled, and led her own firm.
This is a huge distinction.
Why does that matter? Because this isn't some academic sitting in an ivory tower theorizing about how lawyers should behave in a perfect world. This methodology is drawn directly from the trenches of real, messy, high-pressure legal environment.
Exactly.
The course teaches students the exact mechanics of everything we just discussed. How to physically structure a matter team, how to use software or systems to allocate resources against a project plan, how to identify and manage those dangerous workload imbalances before someone quits, and how to actively, deliberately build that sustaining culture.
And the reason this specific approach works is because it treats leadership not as an abstract philosophical theory, but as a daily mechanical practice.
A daily practice.
The tools, the templates, the specific communication frameworks they teach are designed to be immediately applicable the very next day. What is really critical to note here about the ILPM framework is that leadership is not treated as some optional add-on module at the end of the program, like a soft skills afterthought.
Right.
Leadership principles are woven entirely through the technical framework. It proves the fundamental thesis of our entire discussion, that operational structure and human leadership are completely, inextricably inseparable in legal project management. You cannot have one without the other.
For you listening right now, the material gives a very clear, practical takeaway. If you want to move from just managing a stressed out, chaotic collection of individual contributors to actually building a high-performing, sustainable team that can scale, this is the path.
It really is.
The source notes, they offer a free LPM 101 introduction. They also mention a specific R1000 course discount, which you can find at pocketadvisor.co.zlegal-project management course.
That's a great resource.
And from a logistical standpoint, it is delivered entirely online. It is facilitated live, so you can ask these hard questions and push back like we did today, and it results in a globally recognized certification. It is, quite literally, the blueprint for dismantling the hero model.
It provides the exact methodology that partners, practice heads, and corporate legal department leaders desperately need to scale their practices without breaking their people in the process.
So what does this all mean for you? We have taken quite a comprehensive journey today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started by dismantling the pervasive illusion that technical legal brilliance automatically equates to operational leadership. We exposed the absolute systemic danger of relying on the hero model, recognizing it not as a badge of honor, but as a severe capacity bottleneck.
A bottleneck dressed as expertise.
Exactly. And we deeply explored the three core pillars of legal leadership, providing a shared, documented vision, executing strategic, dynamic resourcing, and building a matter-level culture where people can actually thrive, speak up, and operate safely under immense pressure.
Beautifully summarized.
Whether you are a senior partner staring at a spreadsheet trying to figure out why your firm's profitability is stalling despite everyone billing 80 hours a week.
Or you are a junior associate listening to this on your commute, feeling the immense, crushing weight of working under a disorganized hero lawyer.
Understanding this architecture is powerful. It gives you the vocabulary to identify exactly what is broken in your daily workflow. And more importantly, it gives you the framework to demand and build better, more sustainable ways of working.
It certainly does. And to close our analysis, this leaves us with something quite profound to consider about the ultimate future of the legal industry.
Ooh, what's that?
If legal project management becomes the standard, right? If it succeeds in completely distributing knowledge, rigorously documenting workflows, and making the traditional hero lawyer entirely unnecessary for daily operations, it fundamentally shifts the value proposition of a law firm. Will future corporate clients eventually stop hiring individual star lawyers entirely? Will they stop caring whose name is on the door and instead start hiring the operational system of the law firm?
Wow.
And if this system is what guarantees the delivery and the outcome, how does that completely rewrite the traditional partnership track and compensation models as we know them today?
Wow. If the system becomes the star, the whole model flips on its head.
Completely flips.
It really makes you think about who is actually conducting the orchestra in your own firm and whether you are collectively building a beautiful symphony or just playing a very loud, very lonely violin solo.
That's the question to ponder.
We encourage you to look closely at your own teams this week. How are you resourced? Are you building a system or are you just relying on heroes? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.